Hey Sherry, how are you? Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me, Sherry?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm just making sure.
Yeah, just it tells me to click audio, so I have to remember to look.
Yeah. What kind of internet access do you have at your farm?
I we just have a CenturyLink, so it's through the phone line.
Okay.
It's not anything fast.
Are there any options for faster?
Uh, I don't know if there's I mean, is it gets me all confused with DSL and all that kind of other stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we
Yeah.
don't even have like, how they're selling 5G. We don't even have 5G around here. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. No, it's a lot of marketing hype, I think.
yeah. I
Yeah.
think that they told me the only place that had it was Charlotte, and I think Charlotte. I don't even think Raleigh. They're working on getting Raleigh 5G, but
Yeah, I have Verizon for my cell phone and
yeah.
they actually have it in Pink Hill even though they don't promote it. So I was at the barber shop yesterday, which is right in the town, about a mile from here, and I tested internet, and it was unbelievably fast on my phone. Uh,
Huh.
in Pink Hill. So, I think there's a couple of shades of 5G. I think the really fast 5G is limited to Charlotte, but there's kind of a lower level that I know it works in Greenville, and I haven't tested Kinston yet, but it works in Pink Hill. I had 265 megabyte download on my phone, which is pretty phenomenal.
Well,
I think it's slowly working its way around.
well, my computer guy that does my computer stuff, he's got some kind of company. He's putting up, and he's like, I can get you faster internet, and he wanted to put it like at our farm where my house is.
Yeah,
Terrible. And you go drive up our driveway and you'll have it, but you get to our house and it's terrible. We don't have internet. It ain't even worth it.
I
So,
see.
but he wanted to put it up in my yard and or part of our yard, and I was like, I already had cancer, and I don't think I don't know that about I want the cell tower right here at me.
Oh, is it a cell tower? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I
And
see.
he had said, well, it wouldn't affect you. I said, well, send me information. He still ain't sent me any information. I think I scared him away.
No, that's funny. Well, what we do, we have cable internet here at the house, and
Yeah.
we actually paid to have it be installed ourselves because the cable company wouldn't do it. And it wasn't too bad. It was reasonable considering how much we use the internet. But one of the things that we do, so we have terrible cell service here.
Yeah.
So I'm able to use the Wi-Fi to make calls from home. It's as good as you can get.
Yeah.
Uh, but I hardly ever use my cell for cell stuff. I just
Yeah.
use it.
Well, our cell phone, I mean, they're a lot better than what they were. It's getting better, but if we wanted to do cable, they told us because our house is so far back in the field, it was going to be like $3,000 to $5,000 for them to run. I was like, no, thank you.
Yeah. Well, what we did, we're a half mile off the road, and they wanted 20,000 to connect us. And
Yeah.
by just luck, my neighbor happens to know a contractor for the cable company that actually
Okay.
does that work. So he laid it for us for $2,000, which to me was worth it versus 20,000. And we're connected. He said that Spectrum won't even know the difference. You just tell them you're ready for service, and they'll turn you on.
They
And
don't care as long as they
Yeah,
get
and
your
we're
money.
we're the we're the only people on this circuit in Pink Hill. There's no one else except us. So we actually get crazy good speeds and service. There's no one else on it. So we have the entire cable to ourselves in this community. It's kind of funny, but for us, especially with this pandemic, my wife works for ECU, and she's been working full time from home since last March, so more than a year, and she's got a lot of stuff she has to do. So we're
Yeah, we would have
very,
had to, I mean, thank God my kids are older. If we would have had to do it, we would have had to do something.
yeah,
But thank God they're older. Well,
yeah,
internet was a nemesis for me and my daughter when she was growing up.
yeah.
So we just didn't do it because we tried to keep her off of it as much as we could.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand. Well, I think that here in Pink Hill, kind of a long involved story. I won't get into all the details, but there was an opportunity to have, let's see, who was it? CenturyLink put in what's called a gigabit switch, so everybody would have a gigabit speed in Pink Hill. But the community turned it down because they felt like it would just bring pornography and bad stuff into the community. So they turned it down.
Yeah.
And so nobody in town has quality internet because they were concerned about bad stuff from the internet. So what can you
Well,
do?
I'm telling you, there was times where I was like, I wish there wasn't cell phones. I wish there wasn't internet.
Yeah. Hey, I can tell you this.
Business, I don't, because it's really good for business, but family home life and the kids, what they can get into and you not know it is, and people, I mean, mine was more trafficking. I was worried about all the trafficking and all that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I will tell you one thing that, I'm older than you are, so my kids are older. But if it wasn't that, it would be something else. I promise.
I know. Well, I just thankful that mine were older when all this stuff came about.
Yeah, mine are almost middle aged at this point. So it's now they have to worry about their kids, which makes me laugh. Although they were pretty good. They weren't bad at all, by my
I'm not wishing
perspective.
for grandkids yet. Mine's 28 and 25 or 24. So
We've got three grandkids. We've got one that's 3, one that's 3/4 of a year old, and we have one that's almost 2. Uh, that person's in London. That kid is in London, and the other 2 are in the DC area. So we haven't seen them, in a year. So
oh
we're
yeah.
actually going up to see the 2 of them this weekend. We're very excited about. We both got our vaccinations, so we are now invulnerable, and so we'll go up there and hug them, and it'll be really great to see them. But I don't know when we're going to get to London again. London is really locked down right
Yeah.
now. So I don't know when.
I don't even think they're not letting their people travel.
Right, and a lot of other restrictions are much more restrictive than we are here, particularly in the city of London. London is like 9 million people. It's really a lot of people. So, they've really locked it down, and they can't. Well, like my stepdaughter's husband's parents live 2 miles away, and they haven't seen the kid in a year.
Jeez.
I mean, it's just
Well,
crazy.
they're having to go to, from what I heard, they're having to go, if they want to fly or go anywhere, they have to go to the embassy to ask for permission. And then
Oh,
the
wow.
embassy lets them know whether they can or not.
Wow, I didn't realize that. Yeah. Huh.
I mean,
Ironically, London's economy has been booming as a result of that.
Interesting. Interesting. Huh. Yeah. Well, it's crazy times. So let's see here. And I don't know if Christine Kowalczyk, are you here, Christine? I don't think she is yet. Hopefully she has the right link. Let's see here. Maybe she doesn't have it. Brady, can you check and see if she is having trouble getting on? Is there any way to do that?
Yeah, let me shoot her.
Okay. I have listed that she does have the link to it, but my guess is she's having trouble getting on, but I'm not sure.
Dennis, what you do? Tranquilize them forces behind you. They don't move much.
Yeah, I like them that way. I can keep track of them. They're basically waiting for me to feed them. That's what I do. I'm Juan the stable boy. Trust me, I'm a city kid. I ain't getting on those horses for nothing. But my wife is is a serious horse person, and this is a brother and a sister that we rescued from a farm in Alabama or Georgia or somewhere.
Awesome.
And they're 10 and 11 years old. The white one's the girl, and that's Emmy, and the brown one is Spooky and Emmy, and they are hysterical. I never been around animals other than a dog my whole life, and I didn't realize how much personality they had, and they just crack me up. They're really funny, and I can play games with them, and pretend I'm going to feed them, and then hold my hands up, and they're like snorting and like, "Where's our food? Where's our food?" So it's fun.
I've got a dog, or had a dog. She died. I had a dog that would talk to you.
Oh my goodness, that's cool.
If she didn't like it, she'd talk to you.
Oh wow. But if these guys start talking, I'm out of here. Is all I can say. It's all I can do to deal with them as it is. They do signify, like if I'm late in the morning getting out there, and normally during most of the year they're just out in the field. We don't really feed them that much, but in the colder weather they come in, and if I'm late, even like a few minutes, they let me have it. Boy, they stand at the gate and just whinny until I get there. And as soon as I walk into the barn, they immediately head to their stalls and position themselves in front of their bulls and wait for me. It's kind of crazy. While we're seeing if Christine shows up, I thought yesterday's meeting was really interesting. I don't know how many of you thought about that, but what I personally got out of it, here she is the good news about Kinston and about some of the economic development jobs and so forth that are coming to the region. I thought that was really positive. So, okay. So
She's coming,
Christine,
Dennis.
hey, go ahead, Joe.
I said she's coming.
I'm
Yeah.
here.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well. Sorry about that. The link you sent me asked for a passcode,
Oh my goodness.
so I
I'm
couldn't
gonna
get in.
I blame Brady for everything, so you probably didn't do anything wrong.
Well,
I
he
just emailed you back with the passcode too. I'm sorry.
Joe is a neighbor, so
Oh,
he
cool.
got me connected.
Oh, wow.
So
I'm glad he's good for something, geez. So, okay, well, everybody, this is Kristen Kowalczyk, who's going to be helping us today and talking to us. She is a professor at ECU, and last cohort, she actually had a class that got involved with the teams, and this time that's not happening, but she's so good, we felt like we had to invite her and have her talk. I think she's going to touch on branding and marketing, and she has forgotten more than I know. So I'm going to hand it over to her. I've given you the controls, Christine,
Okay.
so hopefully you can do whatever you want, and I will try to shut up.
okay.
Thank
Well,
you, everybody. All right.
It looks like I might have a little voice delay, like
Not-
from what I
not-
say in my image, but
Not happening here. It's not happening at my end.
Okay, just it looks at it for me. Let me see if I can pull up my PowerPoint slides, and I've got slides to go through. So if anyone has any questions along the way, I guess you can either chat or just interrupt.
I have a question while you're trying to get your PowerPoint. Tell us about the Boston Marathon on the wall behind you.
I'll be honest, that is not me. That is my
Okay.
husband. He has run it twice.
Wow.
So all of the items in the back are from marathons that he has done. He's done, I guess, 10 or more marathons.
Oh my God. I'm tired
I've-
just listening to that.
I did one in my life. I thought I was going to die.
Yeah. I did a 5K once, and my whole neighborhood had signed up for it. So I got there late like usual and didn't do any training. Took off like a shot. I was running past everyone like a Disney movie. And after about 2 miles, I couldn't even walk. And I was passed by the race walkers. My entire neighborhood was out cheering for me, but the race walkers passed me, and I got it together to I couldn't lose to the race walkers. So I did beat them, but I was pretty close to last in the field. So anyway.
All right. Well, one of the things that I don't like about Zoom is I can't see anyone, nor can I see myself. All I see are my slides. So if I make some funny facial gesture, I guess that's because I don't know what I look like. So I'll do my best to talk to the camera. But
So Christine, do you see on your screen, do you see the tab participants?
No.
Okay.
All I have is my slides.
Interesting. Okay. Well, Brady, if you know how to fix that, let me know. Otherwise, I'll
I
shut up.
think in presenter mode, when you are presenting a PowerPoint, you can't see any faces.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, it's really annoying. So I won't be able to see any comments. So feel free to interrupt me if there are questions, because I don't have, since we're all working from home, I don't have my nice dual screens where I could keep it up and know what's going on in another screen. So all I got is my laptop.
Yeah,
But,
don't worry. I'll relay any comments in the comment box to you as they come through.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Brady. So, Dennis briefly introduced me. I'm Christine Kowalczyk. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Marketing and Supply Chain Management here in the College of Business and at ECU. I teach in the MBA program. I teach marketing strategy. But my background, I have an undergraduate and an MBA from the University of Georgia. And then I worked for several years in Atlanta. I'm originally from Atlanta, worked in marketing communications, decided I was teaching some classes and decided I wanted to go back and get my PhD. And I got my PhD from the University of Memphis and then came straight here to ECU. So we've been here for almost 10 years. But my research interests are, I teach strategy in the college, but my research interests are in branding. I look at celebrities as brands, luxury brands, how brands influence children. And I could talk all day about the concept of branding, but I will limit myself and give you kind of the highlights of what I think is very important for companies to realize about a brand. So we're going to talk about telling your story and how you can create your brand. So we'll start off kind of giving you the definition of what is a brand. When we look at it, we talk about your identity. So really think of a brand a lot of times as a logo. So it represents who you are. But there's also the element of an image, and that's how consumers perceive you to be. So when we add those two elements together, we come up with what is considered our brand. And a true brand will impact every single interaction in your business. And it really helps you to identify your product from the competition, as well as, helping consumers to make decisions when they're making their purchasing decisions. So branding is a really important element that really can help your business to succeed. And I always say it's all about the development of the brand, not necessarily marketing, because really we have to consider the role that your brand plays in your business before we even talk about how marketing can even impact it. So I always like to share this list with everyone when we talk about brands. Every year, there's a company called Interbrand that releases a best in global brand study. And it's companies from around the world. They have to have, I believe it's at least a presence in 2 countries. They look at their financial information, so they'll look at their profits, they'll look at the role of the brand in purchasing decisions. They look at brand strength, really looking at the loyalty of the brand with consumers. There's a lot of other different factors. But this list is released once a year. The list has evolved over time too, but it really shows you the companies that have developed their brands in a global sense, and really helps you to understand what companies really focus on and use marketing to the best of their ability. So I'll kind of throw out the question, and anyone is welcome to yell out. Anyone have any idea what brand may be considered the best global brand?
Coca-Cola.
That's a good one. They're on the list.
Apple.
Yes, Apple. And here's just the top 30 from the list from 2020. And I've been following this list, gosh, since the early 2000s when I started teaching, and it has evolved a lot over time. Coca-Cola was the #1 company for years, and now you can see they're at number 6. But Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Samsung, all technology companies make it in the top 5. There's a lot of is US-based companies. We see automotive companies too, as well as, interestingly, luxury brands. But remember, this is a global list. So, you know, as I said, I follow this every year. It's always interesting to see how the brands evolve. Apple's been on the top for several years now. But all these companies got to this presence because of the focus on their brand, the development of their brand in a global sense, and then the development of the marketing to support that brand. So kind of to give you a little understanding of what makes them a strong brand, we look at consistent, compelling, as well as clear. So when we talk about consistent, every time we see the brand, we know that they're going to give us the same thing. They'll fulfill our expectations every time. When you go to McDonald's, even though it can be considered a franchise, you know that you're going to get a consistency with the restaurant as well as the menu. When we look at the compelling, it gives us a reason to choose that brand over another. It gives us a reason to make that purchase. And we'll talk about a little bit more about how you develop that story and that presence about your brand. And then lastly, it's clear. It helps to understand who you represent. Usually, as I said, we think about that logo and how it's easy to be recognized. And really, it'll highlight and show clearly who it is that the organization represents. And again, brands can evolve over time also. And you can see that with Apple is the #1 brand in the world. So today we're going to talk about this brand blueprint. And we'll talk about it in 3 phases on how you can develop your brand in the marketplace. We'll start by talking about the story. Every brand needs to have a compelling story. Then we'll talk about the niche, how you find your customers, who your target is, what you value, how you position. And then lastly, we'll kind of touch on the image, which is the logo, the tagline, kind of your personality, potentially your atmosphere, ethics, and customer service. But again, it all talks about how, we'll talk about how that brand can evolve. And I'll show you an image of a book that I use when I talk about branding. That's a good reference to help you to develop your brand story. So we'll start off talking about what is your story. So all organizations, all brands have a story. And you have to be able to tell that story to your consumers. It's what makes you unique. I give the 2 examples of Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Both of them were founded in the late 1800s. We all know that Pepsi was founded in New Bern. It was originally called Brad's Drink, and it was sold at a drugstore in New Bern, and they used cola nuts in their recipe. Coca-Cola has a similar story. They were actually started by a pharmacist named Dr. Pemberton, and he wanted to create a great tasting soft drink that could be sold at their soda fountains within the pharmacy. So those are kind of just a little brief history of those brands, but that kind of helps to show where the brand potentially has come from. And every company's story is unique. So understanding the history of a brand is very important to the development of the brand to consumers. I worked for a company called autotrader.com. A lot of you probably have heard of it. The story that we always told about the brand was that there was no business plan. The company evolved, it's owned by Cox Enterprises. The company evolved over drinks, and the business plan was on a cocktail napkin. But we love to tell that story because it really showed the entrepreneurship nature of a brand, even though it was owned by a large corporation. So when we're trying to create our brand story, we're really looking at finding what's unique about us. So who are we? What are we valuing? You know, what makes us unique? And really focusing on that aspect of from a historical standpoint, but as well as what is our brand that makes it different from our potential competition. It's important to know your target audience and who it is that we're going to try to reach, and we'll talk about that more. It's always helpful to support our story with data. Data actually makes us think more. So think about statistics that you can potentially add to your story. Good stories revolve around a theme in their marketing, and we keep that theme consistent in all of our marketing materials and sales materials. There's a concept called integrated marketing communications. And when we talk about our brand, we make sure that the story is the same, no matter if we put it in a print ad or on social media. We create a theme, the message is consistent, it's one message, one voice, and is much stronger with our customers. And lastly, we really think it's important to make it personal. So there's actually some research that says if we add a personal story, it actually boosts our response with our customers. So thinking about how we can add that personal element. And we're seeing that a lot now with influencers telling their stories about brands and adding that personal element. So the second element we're going to talk about is the niche. And when we really help to understand that, we're looking at how we're going to define our target audience, as well as how we're going to meet their needs. So thinking again about what makes you unique based on who that target audience is. The best example I can always give about finding your niche or your niche in your market is pregnancy bathing suits. Not everybody needs them. Not everybody wants one, but when you do, you know that there's a unique market for that item. So there's a clearly defined market. And so we're not always marketing it. We're not marketing to everyone. We have to figure out who it is that we're going after and really focus on that target segment. So as I mentioned, it's who your customers are. You have to think about it as it's not everyone. All products are developed with someone in mind, trying to meet a problem or meeting a need. And I always tell my students that it's really important that we need to focus on being problem solvers and thinking about what it is that we're trying to fix for our customers. And that will help to really evolve with the value that you're going to create with your customers. So it's not always trying to think about selling the product, but thinking about how that product fits in with the customer's problems or even their needs. The part of that comes with creating customer value. This is what I teach to my marketing strategy students. I really want my students to focus on understanding how value is created for their customers. As I mentioned, a lot of times we can sell the functionality of our product, but we really want to focus on what makes us unique and how do our customers benefit from our product and our brand. So what's special about the business? What's special about the product? What's special about the brand? And really focusing on how that value is created ultimately for our customers. And there's something called a value proposition. Again, I spend a day talking about this with my students. But when we look at our value proposition, again, we're focusing on what's unique and the benefits that we're reaching our customers. And when we write our value propositions, a lot of times we position ourselves against the competition. So we help to highlight what makes us better than the competition. So Apple will talk about what's unique for them, but also they'll consider themselves unique against Samsung. And I talk about, have a note about pay premium. If you're really providing outstanding value to a customer, customers are going to be willing to pay. So we do live in a price sensitive society, but a lot of times, if you're really creating value, you're showing your benefits with your brand, people are going to be willing to pay for that. And that's why people buy Tiffany's rings for their potential fiancés. So with that, we want to create in order to create that value, we want to create the dialogue with our customers. So we can use our website, we can use social media, we can create newsletters and emails and blogs to learn more about what our customers' needs and wants are, as well as what they value from our brands. So it's really important to gather that dialogue with the customers and make decisions on the growth of your brand based on what the customer's needs and wants are, not just what it is that we can produce for them. So something that's been, you might have heard in the news is talking about brand's purpose. And it's, while we have an idea of what our brand is, what our product is, we have to clearly be able to understand what our brand's purpose is. There's a lot of research out there that has shown that consumers really value a brand's purpose. So the purpose comes from the core. It's why do we exist? So understanding why your company is in the marketplace or why your brand is in the marketplace is going to really drive that value to the customers, as well as drive profits to your organization. And then we move out from that core, which is our purpose, and we look at our vision, and that's where we aim to achieve. But that's kind of the destination. That's where it is that we hope to see ourselves in the future. And it's showing that we see the potential of growth for our organization. After that, we look at the mission. So that's what we plan to do to achieve that vision. So it's how are we going to get us there? Our values are going to talk about how we behave. So it's really important to understand, as organizations grow, what are those core values and those expectations that we have for our organization. And then lastly, based on all of that information, we'll position our organization. And that's how we will differentiate ourselves from the competition. And again, when we do our positioning, we look at ourselves against that competition. So how are we different? So when we define our brand's purpose, and a lot of times we're looking at it, how we fit it within the needs of the world, what it is that we're good about, and what are we passionate about, and all those kind of come together to give us that brand's purpose. If you've ever taken a marketing class, you've probably learned the 4 Ps: product, price, place, and promotion. But really, they always forget the purpose. So there really should be a 5th one. But again, we're really looking at our history, our strengths, and looking at asking our employees and our customers of how people view the purpose of the organization. And a lot of companies now are really driven by purpose, especially a lot of new businesses understand the role of purpose. We see a lot of the younger generations that are entering the workforce based on finding organizations that they can work for that have a purpose, that give them a reason to get up and go to work and give a reason to represent that company every day. Give the example of Tom's Shoes, that has a strong purpose where they'll donate 1 pair of shoes for every pair sold. I mean, I'm not saying that every organization has to do this, but we really see that customers have an expectation that brands serve a purpose in the world that's something greater than just the product or the service. So that kind of leads us to our competition. Who are you competing with? Who are you competing against? All companies have some type of competition, and it's very important to be able to keep your eye on that competition. I teach that to my marketing strategy students, that the best companies that are going to be successful are always one step ahead. So you always have to keep in mind who that competition is. And I can align them in 3 different ways. When we think of competitors, we think of direct competitors. So those are companies that do the same job in the same way. I'll go back to my fast food examples. McDonald's and Burger King are direct competitors. They're both in the fast food industry. Then you have secondary competitors, and they do the same job, but they'll do it in a little bit of a different way. So think of who would be in secondary to McDonald's, might be Panera. They offer more kind of faster food, but a healthier, faster food. So McDonald's is, keeping their eye on Burger King, but they have to be keeping their eye on companies like Panera too. And then we have our indirect competitors. So they do a different job, and then they in kind of a conflicting potential outcome. So again, still might not be always on our radar, but they could become our direct competitors very quickly too. And I give the example of McDonald's and Weight Watchers, and you're probably thinking those have nothing to do with each other. But if we're trying to do healthier eating by losing weight, McDonald's has to think of Weight Watchers as a competitor because they're pulling away the people that are going to be eating that fast food. So it's important to be able to identify who your competition is and how they fall within that circle too, if they're direct, secondary, or indirect. And always realize that a secondary and an indirect competitor can become your direct competitor in a heartbeat. So to get into the last shift into the brand blueprint, I'll talk a little bit about your image. And a brand is more than a logo. Obviously, a logo is the representation for consumers to be able to identify with your brand. But again, the logo encompasses more about thinking about what is that image that you're trying to represent. And I always tell my students that it's really important when you're looking at the development of a brand new logo to make sure that everything, again, with the logo as well as the products and the services, have a consistent look and feel. And I know some of these images are a little old for Apple, but Apple really takes that to heart. They have a consistent look and feel from all of their products, as well as their advertising. Their advertising has been very consistent with a white background and black fonts. They tend to use a lot of music within their advertising too. And I always make the joke too that when Steve Jobs was alive, he kept his dress attire pretty consistent also, always in a black t-shirt, blue jeans, and sneakers. So he really held true with the image of what the brand was by the image of himself also. So when we look at the development of our brands, it's really important, as we had defined that brand purpose, that brand promise, that we align it with our employees, our culture, our internal marketing, our sales, and then all the marketing communications that we can do to support our brand. And we can communicate our brand through a variety of different avenues. Whether it's print advertising, direct mail, our website, PR, promotional events, social media, trade shows, doing co-marketing activities, email campaigns. I mean, all of that has to be supported internally too. So I always tell my students that the employees have to live and support that brand and communicate that message out that's consistent to how we're communicating with our customers and our consumers. And the last part that I'll talk about is the brand protection. If you're going to spend time developing a brand, you want to make sure that you're protecting it through trademarks and copywriting or copyrights. And and if you've got something special that you need to even create a patent that has the ability to apply for a patent too. So you want to make sure that when you develop your logo or your tagline that it's distinct. You want to make sure that you're trademarking those logos and protecting it from other individuals. So you never know how big your brand may grow. And there's ways, I always encourage companies too that you need to monitor yourself through social media as well as the internet, because you never know when someone may be using the likeness of your brand. And it could be a small company in rural Colorado that may be using your brand, that you want to make sure that you're protecting your image, especially online. So thinking about how you can watch your presence in social media, how you respond to it, and how you create that community that will continue to protect that brand as you develop it. And that's all I have. And I'll open it up to questions. This is the image of the book that a lot of my discussion was focused on. It's a book by Donald Miller called Building a Story Brand. And it really helps to take you step by step in clarifying your message, and helping you to understand what your story is as your brand is developed and evolved. And it's, as I said, really important to make sure that you're listening to your customers too, by having them to help create your brand and grow your business.
All right. Well, thank you, Christine. That was really good. I'm going to start with a question, and please, everyone, feel free to jump in. But I'd like to ask Christine about channels of communication of your brand. Particularly things like TikTok and YouTube and other channels, and kind of what your thoughts are about, particularly in our case, small e-commerce brands trying to leverage those channels.
Well, if you're not on social media, it's an important avenue to be a part of. Facebook, and I don't know the exact number, but has billions of users. So it's very easy to put your brand out on Facebook and start to create that brand via Facebook. The other channels, social media channels out there, I'll be honest, I dabbled in looking at TikTok. I don't necessarily understand it at times. I think it's for obviously someone much younger than me, but I see the value in brand creation through that medium too. And it's a visual medium, unlike Facebook, which can be much more text driven and some images, but it's finding how your message can be presented in those mediums. Instagram is a visual medium, pictures pretty much. But the cool thing with Instagram is you can put something on Instagram and it can be shared on Facebook too. So we have some crossing over with those social media where it's not as time consuming. There's things like Hootsuite out there where you can kind of create a social media campaign and provide constant content. But the thing about social media, it's either you're in or you're not. If you're not going to follow up and engage, then it may not be the place for you. Maybe there's other mediums like developing a newsletter or a blog, or creating email campaigns. But I think the thing that I find most frustrating sometimes with companies that are on social media is not taking full advantage of them. And as I said, it's either you're in or you're out. But it's a very inexpensive way to create a community, to create a following. And it doesn't mean that you have to have a big following either. When you look at influencers, some of the most successful influencers are at the micro level, only having around 5,000 to 10,000 followers. But they can generate a huge amount of profit for an organization. Does that help?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Anybody else want to jump in here? I know Joe probably does because he's your neighbor and he got you into this.
He always talks that to me. I got him talking to me anytime.
Okay, good.
I'll just say the Donald Miller story brand. I'm a huge fan of Donald Miller, been following him for several years. And I actually have this other book by Miller, Marketing Made Simple. And it's really helped me kind of fill out my website and do some work on there. And, but it's the marketing overall, it's a very complex operation. It can be all consuming where you can't focus on anything else besides that, especially if you're kind of a one person show, like a lot of us on this group are. Any suggestions on how to, or maybe what to prioritize on and so that we can sort of streamline our efforts as we continue to evolve?
And a lot's just going to be very dependent on your company, what you sell, who you're trying to reach. But planning, you have to take the time to plan. I help with marketing for my kids' school, and I'm constantly telling her, I feel like our person that's in charge of marketing is constantly playing catch up. And I always tell her, I was like, we've got to take some time to just plan. If you can, whether it's at the beginning of the month or you do it on a quarterly basis, but thinking about what activities are going on or what activities could come up that you can plan for. And so that alleviates kind of flying by the seat of your pants, so to
Right.
speak. And I'm not saying developing a 20-page marketing plan either. I don't even make my students do that anymore. And the reason behind that is no one reads it. And there's a book about, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a 1-page marketing plan pretty much. And so if you can do that, depending on what your financial cycle is, maybe at the end of the cycle, the beginning of the cycle, and thinking long term, over a course of a year of how you want to get your information out, how you want to connect with your customers, and doing that on an annual basis or a quarterly basis, I think will help in the long run. But as I said, it's one of those when you have to make some plans. You have to think of it again, and then also take note of what you've done and what's worked and what hasn't worked, and not making that mistake again. So I think that's one thing that a lot of organizations don't do. And that's, I'm not talking about just big organizations, small organizations too, don't take reference to the fact of what they have done and what worked and what didn't work. I'm a firm believer, there's no reason to create a wheel. The wheel's there. Let's just figure out how we can keep it moving and moving in the right direction. And as I said, with social media, there's things like Hootsuite that costs very little in order to have potentially a big impact. So being able to plan things, if you're going to be able to use social media, planning ahead, looking at the calendar, looking at, how you can interact and you can respond to holidays or, things that are coming up in people's personal lives that, are going to happen every year. Easter happens every year. Valentine's Day happens every year. And no one's going to remember what you said the year prior, or the past years. So think about how you can just evolve content from year to year, but not having to create content.
Right. I got you.
Did that
I
help?
think,
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
One thing I'd like to add, Christine said a couple of times in that about writing down what works and what doesn't work. I think it's also important to have expectations about what you're doing. For example, in the old world of advertising, my background, there was a difference between direct response and brand building, right? So there may be some activities you do, particularly on social media, that do nothing more than raise awareness, like what you're doing, or it could be a contest, could be a giveaway, whatever, all kinds of activities that are, I would argue, are brand building or brand awareness. And then there's direct response, which could be an email, could be social media, whatever, where you measure effectiveness based on the sales made, or signups for your email, whatever it is. So I think it's important to understand what the possible outcomes are of the various activities. And in the case of Christine talking about planning, this is why it's so important to plan, because you literally can throw everything up against the wall, and you really won't even know what the hell happened, right? So I think it's important to understand the kind of goal of your activities in advance, so that they're purposeful and you're doing things for a reason, not just necessarily direct response sales. And one of the things about smaller companies, in my experience, has been that often we'll hear comments like, well, I ran ads on Facebook and I didn't sell a damn thing, right? So their reaction is that it didn't work because there weren't sales or not enough sales. And that's really kind of, in my opinion, short-sighted. You may well have done a great job of building your brand and awareness, but the group that you reach, you didn't think through who they were or what their needs were. And you may have been pitching to somebody who already has the product or who doesn't need it. So anyway, all of this is just to really point out the importance of planning, and also learning what in the hell are you trying to do, so that you can pick the appropriate cannon for the war, I guess, or weapon for the war that you're fighting.
And as I said, we don't take the time to plan, and you may not take the time to plan in your daily life. I'm a big planner. I'm a big planner of paper. So I make sure every night before I go to bed, it makes me sleep a little bit better sometimes, where I start a list of what I need to get done. Some weeks there's just too much, so it's just one long continuous list. So I understand that planning sometimes can be challenging, but it's very important. So if you set yourself some time to do it, it'll be, more beneficial. And thinking about all that data that you're collecting potentially from a Facebook campaign or from an email, really a lot of companies and even major corporations are not utilizing data. So they're collecting it, but we're not analyzing it, or we're not looking at it as an opportunity to help us to grow our business. So always think of ways on how you can collect that data with even simple, a survey. I got my kids' school now to do quarterly satisfaction surveys. Is it needed? Well, it was when it was starting COVID. Like, we wanted to know if parents were happy or not. And so those are simple things that you can put out and put in place and have as something that's reoccurring that you're collecting information on, and making sure that our customers are satisfied and that they're creating value. And I think something that's very important is always trying to figure out, again, focusing on the customer. Yes, we want to sell more product, but if our customers aren't happy, then they're not going to buy the product, and they're not going to tell their friends about it to buy the product or our service too. So always thinking in the mind of a customer can really help too.
Okay. Anyone else want to step in here before we call it a day?
And if anyone has any questions along the way, Dennis can share my email address. And if anyone's really at a point where they want to take their strategy to the next level, I am always looking for projects for my classes too. So that's an opportunity also. It's sometimes is a challenge for my students though, that for very new businesses. We're working on a very new company right now, and students, it's too abstract for them. But if you want some strategic help looking at that customer value, and as I said, my class really focuses on customer value and creation of customer value. And the students have to make recommendations for companies based on how they can create more value. But if you're interested in that, please let me know. This semester is kind of a done deal because we're on the downslide. But I teach in the summer as well as again in the fall. And it's always a great opportunity for students to be able to engage with companies that they can really help. And they're learning, but they're helping also. So, and I always say, if you get one nugget out of a project, it's better than no nuggets. So, and usually students will provide more than that one nugget.
I guess
Yeah.
I have a
Go ahead.
question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We're a farm, and this is our 75th year, and I'm trying to change our logo, because we don't really have a logo. It says Garner Farms Produce, and it's very generic, just letters. And I'm trying to come up with something, but that is my toughest thing, because we have produce, but then we have our agritourism now that we do, and I don't know quite where to go, or should I leave it more generic as a farm? That's my hard part, because I want to do more shirts than it just says Garner Farms. Versus,
and I share, this is Natalie. I share that same concern, because right now we are primarily crawfish, but our logo is NLN Farms, because we're hoping to diversify and really utilize the rest of all of the land that we have. So it's really hard to fit into that guidance of making your logo fit your product when you're trying to be multiple products.
Well, and a lot of organizations have a parent company and then brands below. Mm-hmm. So that could be an evolution for both of you. I'll give the example of Procter & Gamble. They're the parent company, and then there's tons of brands underneath, and don't ask me what the brands are. Maybe Tide. I can think
Charmin.
of one of them.
Charmin.
What was that? Pampers. Like there's a ton. So, think about how you want to represent that parent company and how things can evolve underneath.
And just have kind of, would you just have because I've been thinking of doing different logos for like cups or shirts or something like that. You know, you have one shirt that has with your produce, then you have one. Well, we actually have our fall agritourism. We have kind of a separate. It's under our farm, but it's with a partner, so we kind of did that separate. But just to let people know, we have pick, we have produce, we have everything. I just
again,
try to make it too hard.
yeah, I mean, but think of how they can all evolve under one another too. So how that parent logo can incorporate with a brand extension. So your produce extension. And again, but you don't want it to get too messy and confusing either. So maybe it's the parent logo with a tagline that changes based on what it is that you're trying to sell. And again, always thinking of who your audience is. Are they going to be upset or be confused if there's a change in that logo? But there's ways that you can communicate without losing that parent identity, because a lot of customers will identify with that parent and not necessarily, they think of you all as a whole and not as an individual too. So it's really important to think about how you maybe communicate with some of your best customers on a casual way on how it is that they view it. The everyday customer may not even realize.
I'm sure they don't.
But you're creating an image in the mind of the consumer too. So think about how it can evolve where you're able to distinguish but keep it all under the same. And it maybe, as I said, the tourism ag business, maybe it is a creation of a different logo or a different tagline or a different identity or spokesperson, that kind of falls under a spokes character that falls under it, that will help you to keep it unique and separate, but still under.
Okay.
Yeah, well, one of the things also that you can explore is the use of what are called landing pages. So you're often used to thinking of your website as kind of this monolithic place that's a pain in the ass to keep updated and expensive and et cetera. But there's nothing stopping you from doing one-page websites for specific items like agritourism or a particular product, or it could be an ad campaign,
Well, that's what I have now is I've got different pages that kind of tells, and our website was very generic. Now, hopefully if I get to Barn to Door, they're going to make it a little better.
Yeah,
but
they will.
It has the different structures that tells about it. It's just a matter of, I want to do shirts, I want to do all this, but I don't know. Right now we just have Garner Farms and it's just the name. And then people don't really realize that we sell produce at our farm. They just think we're a farm that grows it.
Right. Well, I think
Barn to Door is going to expect the logo going into it. They don't, just from experience, they had the expectation up front that you already carried a brand of some type. Yeah. And so be ready for that, because
we have our generic one that I could always change, but I'm looking for something that wows me.
Yeah, we also have a special deal from Barn to Door, $100 off the upfront fee for members of our class. So keep that in mind when you talk to them.
I need to go ahead and do that.
Yeah. If you want to send me an email, I'll connect you with the CEO who I'm working with. I'm trying to get more of a deal, but I think if a bunch of people sign up, we'll have more leverage. But at this point, $100 is still good, and maybe we can do better. But so they're keyed up to help us, and they actually are a marketing channel as well. They do a lot of stuff at their level, like with states and different marketing groups and Carolina stewardship and stuff like that. So I think it's a good group for farms to get involved with for a bunch of reasons, not just running your website and making your life a little easier, but also I think reach and also reaching out to other folks in their network who are using the software. Like Patrick just spoke up, you can get a lot of insights from people who've been using it for a while. And I think there's maybe 50 in North Carolina that are using Barn to Door. I'm just guessing, but it's some significant number. And so that's another resource that we have that can help all of you.
Can I add one more thing?
Please.
So this is an entrepreneur class, right? I mean, it's based around people trying to push business, and a true entrepreneur is always looking for a door to open to take an opportunity. So I'm going to take that right now with everybody that's here that is looking for someone that may be a graphic artist or something of that nature to help design, brainstorm a logo or whatever. My daughter is a illustrator. She actually works for me on a contract doing Army project right now, but she is a Western Carolina grad. So ECU's sister out west.
Yeah.
And she has a Bachelor of Arts in graphic art design. So she has a business card that I can get pinned up here. But
Yeah, we'll post it in the Slack channel, and happy to help promote that. So that's great. Well, folks, we've come to that time of day. So we're gonna thank Kristen for helping us today and giving us a lot to think about and talk about. So we really appreciate it, Christine. Thank you for reaching out to us. And we'll see everybody tomorrow, same time, same station.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.